It has been quite a while since I've uploaded to this YouTube channel, and yet I still get people coming by my Twitch stream, or leaving comments on YouTube, or even emails asking me to come back to YouTube, or asking me to play the new Mord. You know, people are always like, play the new Mord, play the new Mord. I want to watch you play the new Mord. And I tell them the same thing every time. No. So I thought it'd be a lot easier just to make a video explaining why the new Mord is just so bad and why I don't enjoy it. And anytime someone asks, I can just link them to this video. Mord's biggest problem is that his damage is gated by his level. His passive and his Q both have per level scaling. So that means that they both have very low base damage, but they scale up based on what level you are in the game. And their AP scalings aren't that great either. His Q has a 60% AP scaling. No matter how many items you buy or how fed you are, you're really not going to get a lot of damage from items because they have per level scaling. And Mordekaiser's E is even worse because it's percent magic pen that scales up per level of the E. And then having percent magic penetration on his E makes Void Staff not a valuable item because you don't get the full value because his E and the Void Staff don't stack together. They stack multiplicatively, so you're not getting the full value out of building Void Staff as you would, just building flat pin. But there's not a lot of flat penetration item for AP champion, so that makes Void Staff a really bad item to build versus tanks. But a champion like Darius doesn't really have this problem because there's items like Black Cleaver, and any lethality item gives you just like flat armor pin. There's just more options for AD champions like Darius than there is for Mord. With Mord's damaging spells out of the way, let's talk about his W next. So I don't know who designed this ability, but it's absolute garbage. For some reason, you can reactivate W to get a heal, which is 40% up to 50% of the remaining shield. There is almost no situation where this is a good idea. The only time it's ever a good idea is if you just want to fight, and for some reason, like you still have a lot of your shield left. Then convert it into some health. But he has no way of using this to sustain himself in lane or to really heal himself, because you have to get a good amount of heal, you need your full shield, which you'll have to be in combat, but you'll end up taking more damage in a trade than you will healing back with W. Every other top lane juggernaut in the game has some sort of sustain in their kit, with the exception of Urgot, and Urgot could just build lifesteal. However, with Mord, you can't build any lifesteal or any healing items because he doesn't benefit from AD stats. And you can't really build Gunblade on Mord because even his auto attacks scale off of ability power. So you're really wasting the AD part of Gunblade and a lot of gold in order to build it. And this limits his variety in builds because you're forced to take Conqueror and the healing rune secondary to have any lane sustain or any healing at all. And lastly, we're going to talk about Mordekaiser's ultimate. This ability is just fucking trash all around. So when you ult someone, you ult them into a 1v1 death realm, and you steal 10% of their core stats. And, stats like attack speed and AD are useless on Mord when he really only benefits from AP. And most of the time, most top laners aren't AP champions, so you really don't benefit from stealing those stats. And not only that, but the only benefit to leveling up your ultimate is a lower cooldown. The stat steal doesn't go up, the amount of time you're in the ultimate doesn't go up. It's always 7 seconds, and it always has a really long cooldown. And another weird thing about Mord ult is that the stat steal scales off of death timers, but between level 6 and level 11, the death timers are so short, you really don't get a huge benefit from having that stat steal, if you even kill them in the 1v1. Another thing that makes it so terrible is the fact that any champion can get out of your ultimate by building QSS. It's only 1300 gold, and if you don't want to build that, you can get Stopwatch or Zanya's, and then you're invincible for 3 seconds of those 7 seconds in Mord ult. So if you build either two of those items, you're pretty safe against Mord. And even some champions like Rengar and GP can just get out of the ultimate with their spells. And champions that have stealth can just stealth during your ult cast to cancel the cast of your ult. And here's a fun fact about Mord's new ultimate. It was originally designed for Fiora's rework a couple years ago. They made a post about it, talking about Fiora's development, but they didn't have the technology at the time to put this kind of ultimate on Fiora. So then they made a version of it for Camille, and now that they have the technology, I guess they wanted to put the ultimate on Mord. The ultimate really doesn't fit Mord in my opinion. It's definitely a duelist ultimate, so I'm not sure why they put a duelist ultimate on a juggernaut. I feel like they really messed up with the ultimate. It just doesn't fit Mord, especially when every other juggernaut in top lane has a damaging ultimate. It just seems out of place. And then next, let's talk about how there's no skill expression for Mord and how his gameplay is very one-dimensional. Your only combo on the new Mord is just to land your EQ, and then you proc your passive, and then you either kill the enemy with your passive or you don't. Like, that's it. There's no gameplay to it. Like, there's nothing different about the combo. You do the same combo every time you fight, and that's it. And there's nothing that really separates a good Mord player from a bad one, besides knowing how to use your E to push people away, to, you know, get away from being, like, ganked or something. Or using your Q flash combo, which is like, but that's it. That's the only skill expression you have. Even Darius has more skill expression than Mord, because he has auto resets, you know, his ultimate is better. There's a lot of things you can do on Darius that give you more skill expression and separates a good Darius player from a bad Darius player. You know, and it's kind of weird because Mord and Darius are almost the same champ. Now let's talk about Mord's visual update. Honestly, for the most part, I like the updated models. I feel like they did a pretty good job, even with most of the skins. However, over half his skins got shafted in the visual effects department. Lord Mordekaiser, King of Clubs Mordekaiser, and Dragon Knight Mordekaiser all share the same visual effects as the original Mordekaiser skin, besides the passives. Every passive on every skin has its own unique effect, so I'm not sure why these three skins share the same Q, W, E, and R like animations or effects, when the Infernal skin and Pentakill have their own effects. Like, why does the cheapest Mordekaiser skin have better effects than the other two skins? It makes no sense. Next, let's talk about comparing Mord's rework to the one right after it, which is Pantheon. You know, some Pantheon mains might disagree with me here, but his rework is the ideal rework. Everything that was in old Pantheon's kit, it's still in Pantheon's kit. It's just updated. You know, instead of having a point-and-click spear, you now have to aim it. But you can also tap it for short range, and you get bonuses for using it short range compared to throwing it. He still has his stun, he still has his block, his ult is the same. They're just all updated forms of old Pantheon. They have a lot of, you know, they just added skill expression to the new Pantheon. They went from a very simple champion to a champion where you can actually express your skill on them. But I feel like with Mord, they kind of reversed it. They went from a very complicated kit with a lot of expression to a very simple kit that doesn't have a lot of expression. You have, you know, like I mentioned at the start, you have one combo. And they made his kit very straightforward instead of having all these crazy passives and stuff like that. And they said it best in the Pantheon rework video.
One thing we found out in development that surprised me a little bit was how much attachment there is on the character as a spell-based character. Old Pantheon is a very simple kit. He throws spears, he has a point-and-click stun, and every game kind of played out the same. But they drifted too far from like old Pantheon. It's really important to go in knowing what can be changed to make it look and feel awesome, and what can't be changed or you'll lose the gameplay that like attracted you in the first place. So for New Pantheon's kit, we changed every spell, but tried to stay close to the spirit of what the character was about.
You know, but where's that attention to detail on the Mord rework? Why does Pantheon keep his gameplay intact? Because they want to keep Pantheon players playing Pantheon, but they don't want Mord players to play Mord? I feel like they really missed their mark, and whoever reworked Pantheon should have been the ones to rework Mord. So now let's kind of compare the old Mord to the new Mord. Old Mord had really good AP and AD scalings on all of his abilities, which really allowed him to have a wide variety of item builds and even like rune pages. And old Mord's damage was not gated by per level scaling, so this allowed old Mord to carry with items if he got to snowball. So this gave him a lot of variety, and like it made every game a little different, because you could, you know, if you want to play AD one game, you could play AD. If you want to play AP one game, you could play AP. If you want to do hybrid, there was so much variety in builds alone that made him a lot of fun. Old Mord's passive was kind of broken because it gave him a shield every time he dealt magic damage, which I think Riot could have fixed by making it work like Shin passive being activated by an ability, or lowering the amount of shield you got from your spells. And then Mord's third Q was really ridiculous. It had very high AD and AP scaling, which they could have easily just toned down. But honestly, it was a much more reliable ability than the new Q, because the new Q is very slow and can be dodged. Old Mord's W was also pretty broken. It had a lot of passives to it, and it was a pretty complicated ability. It gave you AoE damage if the two circles touched. You also got some sustain, because if you reactivated it, anything inside your circle would heal you. So this allowed him to have really good lane sustain and even like trading potential with someone, because, you know, they would think you're pretty low and then you could just heal. But they could have toned down the heal. They could have done literally anything else with it. But instead they gave him the new W, which is just a shield that has some weird heal on it that never works, and he has no sustain anymore. Mordekaiser's old E was just fucking trash. This ability got nerfed on the second rework. It was really only used for a small amount of poke, but mainly just used to get your shield up. I think old Mord's E should have been more like Yorick's is now, because Yorick has a ranged E that does decent damage and it also slows, which would help old Mord a lot. Or even just give the new E to Mord as a gap closer, because this version of the E was just fucking trash. And then last but not least, let's talk about old Mord's ultimate. It was very unique, and it was unlike anything else in the game. It would curse a target for 10 seconds, and if they died while they were cursed, the Mord would get a ghost of the champion, and he would also gain some stats from whoever they killed. And then he could control the ghost, and, you know, don't even get me started on the ghost. I could give you a full college course on the ghost alone. Every ghost was different. Every ghost had unique passives. This ultimate really separated good Mord players from the bad ones, knowing how to control the ghost, knowing what all the ghosts did. Some of the ghosts like Nautilus, Braum, Udyr, they could stun. Some champions like Vayne would get true damage. You know, it just really depends on what champion you killed with your ultimate. And that was something that made the ult really cool and unique. And it added even more variety to old Mord, because every time you faced a new champion, it would be a new ghost with a new passive, or, you know, something like that. And I think that's really why I liked old Mord. It's mostly just variety. There was a lot to do in terms of runes and item builds and ghosts. Like every game, I could put thousands of games on old Mord and not really get bored. But with a new Mord, you know, like I was saying, you like variety. You have one combo. There's nothing that separates one game from the next, really. Now, you know, I'll just give my final thoughts on the video. First, if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you. I spent a lot of time on this video. You know, it's probably the most work I've ever put into a video. And I think I would also like to, you know, express that I don't think Mord is an unplayable champion. Sure, there are people out there that like him, and they like the simplicity of the champion. And I'm not saying he's unplayable, like you can't win games on him. It's just not how I would prefer. You know, at the end of the day, these are all my opinion. There's going to be people that disagree with me, and there's going to be people that agree with me. I would also like to thank my friend Dom for helping me out with the video. He was the guy who played as Shaco, GP, and Rengar, just to help me get some footage. So big shout out to Dom. And then another thing I want to talk about is, you know, I've thought about coming back to YouTube and uploading videos on my channel, but it just feels kind of weird to upload non-Mordekaiser gameplay to my channel. But, you know, you could also argue that, like, SRO doesn't upload only Renekton to his channel. But, you know, I just personally feel a little weird about it. That's why I privated all of my older videos that were different champions. I still play the game, but I mostly just play mages. I play mostly Nico. So if you want, you can follow me on my Twitch channel, which is Andy2. I renamed myself. I do variety streams. I also still play League on there sometimes. It's just kind of whatever I feel like doing. You can also follow my second YouTube channel, also called Andy2, where I upload variety videos or stream highlights. But if you guys would like to see some more League gameplay, even if it isn't Mord, because I'm not going to play the champion, you know, let me know, and then I'll decide whether or not I feel like uploading gameplay to this channel again or not. And finally, just thank you for watching.